Turn ideas into gold. Let the magic unfold. Every story to be told makes the world a place to hold.
Welcome to Beyond the Blueprint. We're excited to have Derek Robinson here with us today. Derek is a powerhouse. He is the managing partner at Black Restaurant Weeks, as well as one of the board members at Feed the Soul Foundation. And I'm really excited to have him here. We've got a lot of things to discuss, and we will jump right in. So, Derek, thank you so much for joining me today. I would love to hear a little bit about what is Black Restaurant Weeks, what is Feed the Soul Foundation, where did these things come from?
Absolutely, Brandon. First and foremost, thank you so much for having me on this amazing platform to discuss business and architecture. As I shared with you before meeting you, I was an architect major at the University of Houston. So architecture and design is definitely at the helm of my heart, being able to tell those stories through design and art. And so essentially, so to your question about Black Restaurant, so we're coming up on 10 years of celebrating Black Restaurant Week. It was founded here in Houston as a one-week experience highlighting various Black-owned businesses and restaurants throughout the city. At that time, we had about 15 or 20 restaurants that came about to be able to be a participant in that particular campaign. And I could not have been able to not do it without my other two business partners, the founder of Black Restaurant Week, Warren Luckett. By trade, he and his father own a South African wine distribution company called Brandwar Wines. And he was on his journey, being able to look into the different restaurants and things of that nature, understanding that there is a need for these restaurants to be on a larger platform. He was really engineering that in his mind. And so he came to Fallon and I with this amazing idea. And prior to creating Black Restaurant, we had our own digital marketing firm called Fade Media. Fallon, Farrell, and I were getting that together, working on one side of the world. He was working on the other side of the world. And so he came to us and said, hey, look, I had this amazing idea to highlight restaurants. From there, that is how it's being able to be created. Like I said, we're celebrating 10 years of just being able to highlight the restaurants. And not only here in Houston, but we've actually been able to expand across the nation. We have 15 regional campaigns that highlight Black-owned culinary businesses from the whole state of Florida to the Pacific Northwest, featuring restaurants in Seattle and Portland. And we do a lot of great campaigns throughout the year. It is a 10 to 11 month campaign where we highlight restaurants, if you will. And Black Restaurant is a multi-tiered system as well too, outside of just traditionally hosting a restaurant week where folks are understanding what restaurants are in town and trying them out and having different specials and that nature. We also expanded the view to the different other operators in the culinary space. We created signature events, one being called Nosh. It was a catering competition that we've hosted throughout the nation at various locations, such as the George R. Brown, the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, and amazing venues in Los Angeles as well too. Another signature platform that we do, another property of Black Restaurant Week, is called Power of the Palate. Power of the Palate is our bartending competition where we highlight Black-owned bartenders. So we find them throughout the matriculation of us going through all these different restaurants and where they may be at their own resident bar across the nation. There is a big competition that we've done over the years. And then we have Sound Bites, which is our food truck festival that we've done. And it's a really big event where we have a lot of food trucks, vendors, a marketplace, amazing DJs and great things throughout the experience. We've done that across the nation as well too. And we've also had another property of Black Restaurant called Aroma. Aroma was for a business development panel, if you will. And over the years, we've done that. We had different topics when it comes to women in culinary or how to start your own restaurant. During the pandemic, unfortunately, we had to shutter our doors for a lot of those different signature events that we love. The food truck festival, the bartending competition, the catering competition, even the panel discussion. And at that time, we had an amazing sponsor and supporter of Black Restaurant Week and just came to us with the idea, said, hey, think bigger, if you will. And so as we kept thinking bigger about what we could do to really enhance our brand, we looked at the Aroma portfolio and said, let's expand this more than what it is. And so that is essentially how the foundation was created, being able to really stabilize culinary businesses through advocacy, resources, and grants. And it's in conjunction with our sister property, Latin Restaurant Weeks. They do an amazing job of highlighting Latin cuisine from across the nation. And some of those restaurants from both sides of the house, if you will, come into the foundation to be able to be supported with some of the efforts that we've done throughout the years. One where it is a cohort program where we have about 20, 25 restaurants come in, and it's a $10,000 grant, but they also receive 6 months of business development support of their choosing, whether it's marketing or it's merchandising, expansion, human resources, operations, things of that nature. What is up to them as being able to identify one of their key areas to address. As a business, we paired them with culinary professionals that have done amazing jobs in the industry and being able to give them those good nuggets of info and actually walk them through how it looks to be able to go from their situation to creating a solution and having some amazing results. And so with that, that's essentially how the Global Culinary Conference was created. We hosted our very first Global Culinary Conference earlier this year at our foundation office downtown Houston. It was an amazing time. We had restaurants from all across the country being able to understand how to better their business. One thing that we do with Black Restaurant Week, Latin Restaurant Week, and Feed the Soul Foundation is that we're not a fluff type of businesses. We definitely want to be able to understand what are the problem areas and how we can address them efficiently with intentionality as well too. There's a lot of great conferences in the world. I think they're all amazing, but we really strive ourselves being able to hone in on those issues that these restaurants have told us or we see in the landscape, in the marketplace, in the environments, and how we can create those viable solutions for them. And so with that, we're able to have our second Global Culinary Conference coming up this January.
It's coming up. Yeah, it's coming
And,
soon.
and,
Tell me the dates for that.
yeah, so that is January 26th through the 29th. It is a 4-day experience. We have an amazing culinary scholarship dinner, and that is being able to provide scholarships for the up and coming students in the culinary space. We can see our new professionals rise from that. Also, we have our Global Culinary Conference where it was just a 1-day, 2-day experience, that has gone into a 4-day experience. Number one, identifying those restaurants that have been established for a while, but need a little extra hand holding about some different areas they need to understand. Also, those new and up and coming restaurants or those who want to be in the restaurant industry about how to even get started. And so with that, we have identified 2 different paths for the conference this year. One, the Boost Camp, which comes from last year. And then, of course, our Launchpad track, which is for those folks who want to start a restaurant. We definitely had to keep the Houston theme alive with the space themes, but those are some great things coming up for this year's conference.
That's very exciting. I've heard a lot of the words that you've used of the different challenges that restaurant owners are facing. Starting a business and then they're starting a hospitality food and beverage business. And I think it's like a whole other league. Yeah. What are some of the challenges that new restaurant owners, like the ones who are just, I got this concept, I want to do it, what are they facing versus what are these more established restaurateurs facing?
Brand, so it's a lot when it comes to some of the items that we've heard over the years. So one, just getting started, some of the restaurants that we've come across, they're amazing cooks, but they sometimes don't know how to run the admin side of the house. If you have the front of the house, you have the back of the house, but not the admin side of the house. So there are some business practices that some folks are still lacking to be able to help take that stress off them to run a business efficiently or just want to be in the love of food and creating. So that is one big component of it, is being able to understand how your books work. What are your finances? What can or you cannot do? And then even going back from that standpoint, did you broker the right deal when it comes to getting the restaurant itself? A lot of restaurant owners, as they are launching an amazing restaurant, sometimes they just choose the wrong piece of real estate. One, not understanding that full 360 model of the plot that they're purchasing into. And of course, as you can imagine, you want to start something amazing, but you want to get a deal, things of that nature. Some things that we try to educate our current restaurants in both sides of the house, Latin restaurant, Black restaurant, in the foundation, is before we get started and try to franchise or try to even start a restaurant, let's make sure you are getting the right location. There's a few examples over time that we've heard that some restaurants have gotten a great deal on real estate, but there's been no traffic to that area. There's a few restaurants that have shut their doors in food halls because the food hall did not do their due diligence of bringing the people in to be able to just try the food. You also have the marketing piece as well. A lot of folks think marketing is scary. Being a marketing professional myself, marketing is fun. Being able to get them organized about how to create various campaigns to get the word out there, how to partner with different platforms such as visiting bureaus or influencers, or maybe even some type of spirit if they happen to have a bar component to their or lounge or whatever their offering may be. That, and then also you have a staffing issue as well too. I think the pandemic opened that up for everybody, not just restaurants alike. It's what are the parameters of finding that right staff that believes in your product, that wants to stay around and being paid appropriately. And while we're here in the South, we're getting comments from restaurants on the West that are saying, hey, my staff now has to be paid at minimum $25 an hour. That is by far enormous.
Yeah.
And think about the restaurant industry, the margins of being profitable are very thin. And then you're eating into that by adding additional costs from the state saying we have to have these folks get paid X amount of money. It's a lot. So there's a lot of great challenges, but I know some of them are very similar, but we definitely try to loop them all together by being able to take them on a journey, of course, through our efforts of the cohort and through the conference as well, too, how to understand QuickBooks, how to understand your finances. And it's a big audit system as well, too. Hey, let's audit everything. Let's audit. Some things can't be audited as far as your lease and your restaurant, because you may be in a lease and that is up until 2068 or something like that. So some very terrible things. But how can we help you renegotiate those things as well? Understanding from a legal standpoint, do you have the right lawyer in place? Do you have a trademark in place? Do you have the copywriting, et cetera? Are you trademarking your recipes so no one can walk away? A lot of things that we're throwing at them is with intentionality for them to grow and be better so they don't shut their doors because of some random thing that they missed in the fine print or they just missed because they just had no knowledge of.
Right. No, that's hugely important. And it's something that as architects and interior designers, we do run into. We always ask for a copy of the lease before they sign it. There's going to be something in there, a clause or some sort of language that puts them at a disadvantage. And so we're always happy to do that for the clients and say, hey, these asks of 30-day turnaround for a design and permit drawings is a little short. Let's ask for more time or more free rent and what those dials are to turn so they can have better negotiations. One of the things you said about pricing, and I think everybody feels the prices right now. It feels like everything is just so expensive. But when it comes to food, you want high quality ingredients and an amazing customer experience within the restaurant. And so I guess how do we get the general public to understand that those things are not cheap, right? So if you want quality ingredients, it's gonna demand a premium. And how do we start to work that into the narrative when we are going to restaurants and educating customers about their food sources and the supply chain?
Yeah, another great question as well, Bryn. It's a lot of different ways, right? And before I go into, I definitely want to touch the base of what the previous question as well, too, about just from an architectural standpoint, there are clauses in certain contracts. Shopping centers may say, hey, we need to have an update. We need a refresher, if you will. And you have to come in and find out the loan, get a loan for that, or what does that look like? And, pairing up folks with the right architects and engineers to understanding how their previous restaurant or the previous space worked to be able to make sure that it's a functional. Some restaurants have come to us about that as well, too, saying we don't know or we need to have a little more help. It's more than just pretty lights. That's one piece about it, but that kind of helps the ambiance of a place. But yes, that's why I'm thankful for you guys being a part of the conference this year, be able to tell folks what that looks like at a high level space to say, hey, look, these are some things to consider and to think about as you are growing your culinary brand. And that goes right into the pricing point of the brand. So when you think about just having fresh ingredients, we all, as consumers, are understanding the pinch of what the grocery industry is looking like. I think one of my friends said a pack of gum was like $4.50. When has it ever been $4.50? I thought gum back in the day was $1.50. So I think this also goes back to what we say from a marketing standpoint of telling these restaurants, it is a show and tell exercise. Number one, you have to showcase your processes. We do have different operators in our system that we try to pair restaurants with that may either be farmers, ranchers, or just folks who do packaging, distributions, things of that nature to be able to help get broker some better deals, if you will, when it comes to helping to knock down some of those costs. But again, that's part of our exercises when it comes to the foundation and the conference is that we've done an audit of menu pricing. So when you have a plate of, let's say, smothered pork chops, some rice and beans, things of that nature, the plate is costing the consumer $25 plus. On one side, does the plate cover the rest of your costs? Each plate should be a legal, HR, so on marketing, so on and so forth. That plate should pay for the business itself. That's one thing that we are helping reshape a lot of the restaurants that come into our conference, their mindset on that. These plates have to be able to pay for the business or you will fail. And then also bringing that awareness to the consumer. It's not hard to say, hey, look, ABC restaurant, we get the freshest ingredients from local farms. For example, there's a local restaurant here in town that actually works with a local farm called Planet Forward. We work with fresh ingredients. We have a partnership with them. The consumer is already understanding that I'm paying for fresher food, which you are.
Yeah.
But I think it's more of that behavioral science of saying, hey, let folks know where these things are coming from so that can help educate folks about that. And then hopefully, as administrations change nationally, regionally, and locally, some of those price breaks and conversations can change. Even from a foundation standpoint, we are in those conversations, being able to understand what that looks like. You guys, this is what's happening from Washington, D.C., or your specific region and state. These are some things that you can be ready for, or that you need to get ready to adjust if you already have a restaurant in the event that something changes. So yes, the pricing, it's a difficult one because again, you have to make a profit. Everyone was making a profit. They're just going up by default. I don't know when the tide is going to change for that, but we are saying you have to educate the consumer on what they're consuming because that'll help out a little bit more in those conversations.
Do you find it's interesting to think about industries, right? When I think about the architecture industry, it's very much stuck in its ways. This is how we've always done things, and we just plow ahead, and it can be very difficult to change. And so I wonder within the hospitality industry, within the food and beverage space, are there ways maybe for these different owners to expand revenue streams, but also to invite more people into this experience? And so maybe that could be something where there are smaller portions at a lower price point. Maybe there are like the ugly vegetables that nobody wants, and all the food is made from that. Just something where we can start to change the narrative and change the process and the approach to what this industry is. Have you found any of your clients that are doing something unique or disrupting the industry?
Yeah, so we've heard a few restaurants throughout the nation that have done partnerships. Like I mentioned, that local restaurant that works with a local farm. We've found great price breaks with certain farmers that have relationships with restaurants from Mississippi, Florida, and Atlanta. There's been some really great price breaks to find some of those great resources and those great folks to be able to help give them a price break as we are unearthing some of those things like you're mentioning now, as far as saying, hey, look, what are some things that we can still have a great product and a great plate before our consumers, maybe using a reduced blank. And so that's, I think, that we're challenging our culinary professionals to reconsider to be a little easier on your mind and financially as well. For example, some of our restaurants have had 25 items on the menu. And so we challenged them and said, hey, out of all 25 items, number one, is everyone eating this at a given time? I highly doubt it. We've helped some restaurants reduce their menu from 25 down to 10. That has helped them to understand that, okay, look, if I do this product, so on and so forth, so many times, really build it up, really layer it, alter it, where case may be, and really be stable in those offerings. It's consistent. Some restaurant owners want to talk about expansions, and our challenge in that is that you need to create the same sandwich for us 100 times. If you can do, that's great. And that's just a start. So when you do that sandwich for 100 times, you got to do it again the next hour and then the next day and so on and so forth, to where it is a ongoing process where there's no deviation of seasoning process or whatever case may be, so that when a consumer comes to this location, they are going to get the same taste every time. That goes back into a hiring problem. That goes back into an operational problem as well too, is because, hey, this is my recipe. This is the recipe. It needs to be addressed accordingly. There are some things that we've also challenged our restaurants to be able to, hey, reduce this. Culturally, it's great, but right now for you to be financially sound, it needs to be a year or a seasonal product that you offer over the next couple of years or so.
Mhm. It's a great point in terms of customer expectations and consistency
Yeah.
that trust is built through that. When we think about a customer coming into multiple locations, whether it's a franchise or a company owned restaurant, that's the key to brand equity. If you have your name out there and people show up to any location, they have that certain expectation in their mind. And so being able to have that consistency of process and service and interior design, like all these things, like what should that customer expect? That's a huge part of it. That's something we've had to help our clients with
Yeah.
identifying what these customers want, because as we go through these expansions and we're locating these restaurants across town, there's going to be nuance. And I think there's kind of two ends of that spectrum, right? Where it's like everything is exactly the same, basically a fast food joint, versus
Yeah.
when we have these more mom and pop or local grown chains, we really want them to have a little bit more nuance because I think that maintains that community connection. And
Yeah.
so a lot of that conversation goes back to that whole idea of the 80/20 rule, right? Like you're
Mhm.
talking about the menus. You don't need 25 things when 80% of your money is going to come from 20% of the menu. So just focus on that 20% of the menu and make it amazing. Same thing for
Yeah.
design. So keep 80% the same and then change up 20% depending on the location. And it's
Absolutely.
been pretty successful. So it's great to hear that kind of applies across the board.
To your point about consistency, that's really what it's all about, right? Consistency across the board. One thing that I had left a few folks back with last conference was just setting a standard. Whatever your standard is, whatever you want to do, that has to start in one aspect of your business, and it has to pretty much infiltrate every other piece. So again, whether it is every plate is going to be on a white plate, every plate is going to have some type of red marking, or the logo is on the napkins or on a coaster. You have to start creating that brand equity, as you're mentioning as well, too, to be able to start saying, hey, this is who we are. And then, of course, when you come to our restaurant, that's also your brand. This is how you feel, how when you come in and how you leave is also
Mhm.
one thing that we're striving with these restaurants as well, too.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's a wonderful book. I don't know if you've read it. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality.
Oh, no.
And
Mm-mm.
it's all about 11 Madison Park and how they became the best restaurant in the world and got that
Okay.
accolade. But it's amazing to read through all the little details and how they would constantly work on improvements. I think the thing that stood out to me the most was this idea of culture. We can talk a lot about company culture, corporate culture, and we usually think about, well, that's for the banks and the lawyers and all those big firms. But
Mm.
really, culture has to come down to even the small 5-man, 10-man team,
Yeah.
because that's going to be the foundation for every interaction, every behavior, every decision. I think tying back hiring practices and processes to your company values and making sure that the people you're bringing into your team align with that is going to
Yeah.
be so pivotal, especially when it's super cutthroat in the industry. How are you going to stand out and make sure that you're not spinning your wheels and wasting your resources with that revolving employee door? So I think
Yeah.
that's definitely something we see on our end is how do you understand at your core as a business owner what you want from your business, and then how do you communicate that not only to your employees but to your customers as well so they feel like they're part of the vision that you've got.
Yeah, and you have to allow the community to tell you what's going on. For us, as we were creating Black Restaurant Week, we had a certain mindset about what we wanted to do. Consumers said something differently, and so we
Mhm.
had to adjust. It's a hard pill to swallow, but it's also very humbling because you're doing something amazing. You're trying to beat the pavement with something that's this is what it is. But that's the beautiful thing about evolution. You have to evolve to be relevant. At the core, you probably have four or five, maybe three pillars of what you want to establish. But as long as you are able to funnel those ideals into those pillars and still evolve with the ever-changing world, you should be fine and relevant.
Yeah, very good. So speaking of evolution, what have you seen as the changes since the pandemic that have stuck and maybe evolved into something more, good or bad? There's definitely changes. So what have you seen as the things that have hung around since then?
So I've seen a lot of reduction, if you will, and just a lot of reduction when it comes to across the board. Folks used to do so much, they don't do as much anymore to alleviate that stress. Just really focusing on those key menu items, so that key experience, if you will. Other things that we've seen that has been amazing are different offerings, if you will. Some restaurants started to go into the catering space, being able to really capture some of that other money throughout the year, whether they're catering a professional function or getting ready for the holidays. So they've really been able to capitalize on that. Merchandise, that's going to be a discussion at our conference this year, just to understand how to do that, if you will. Hey, you have a signature sauce. How can you take it from the back of the house to the shelf of consumers and other retailers across the nation? How that process works. Other merchandise, whether it be shirts or things of that nature, those are very small, easy things that they can still plus up them financially, but also give some goodwill in the local communities. From an infrastructure standpoint, I've seen folks reduce down to a food truck. So they've gone from a food truck to a brick and mortar, but the brick and mortar is not as big. Seeing it to where some restaurants have gone into the ghost kitchen concepts as well, and just understanding how to fit themselves into these different spaces and also into food halls. That's a very interesting one for me to see how it continues to develop, because ghost kitchens are essentially just a reduction of everything, but you're just cooking food and you're turning it out. There's not a lot of extra engagement with the consumer. It's literally, what do you want to eat? I'm curious to see if more restaurants on both sides are going to start engaging and entertaining and investing into those offerings for their consumers in their local communities.
Great.
Yeah.
Last question before we wrap up. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the human experience. And food is so central to our existence. What is it about giving a platform to the Black community, to the Latin community, to these other disenfranchised people who've not been represented?
Yeah.
What kind of impact does that have for them to take this fundamental human experience and share it with the world?
Another great question. I can't wait for you to experience this in not only just in January, but along the journey with us throughout the upcoming year. A lot of restaurant owners in the platform that we've done over the years, they've been very thankful for Black Restaurant Week because they've never been in the same room as their peers. It's been great to see them in the same space and be able to do idea sharing. And the hope is that as we've been continuing, of course, been doing this for 10 years, but even beyond, that some of these restaurant owners continue to start doing M&As, mergers and acquisitions, and being able to start building bigger and better businesses in the culinary space. It's always refreshing to see their smiling faces and know that they have others who are going through the same problems that they're dealing with, whether it's locally, regionally, or across the nation. And a lot of folks are dealing with the same things. And just as we are providing some of those insights, there's others that their peers are also providing great insights as well, too. So that is an amazing effort that it is affording us, even as we are doing the foundation, as well as the Global Culinary Conference and just other events that are through the foundation as well, too. And being able to highlight some of these disparaging issues. Things are just very disproportionate across the nation. There's some things that, a lot of restaurants, they have a lack of capital, but they have an amazing business plan. But you have their peer that did not have as great of a business plan, but gotten $1 million. And they're like, how? You have some of those psychological issues that you have to deal with as well. But again, when we're coming into the foundation, that's what we're hoping to do. Those who are wanting to launch a restaurant, let's look at your business plan and let's make sure that it's done properly and effectively. Being able to make sure you're asking the right questions. It is a proper 360 model that you're able to provide that particular person who's going to provide you the loan. Things of that nature. It's going beyond just the food. Again, as you mentioned before, food is fun. Food is a community builder. Food allows you to to learn a different aspect about a different culture that you never known about. And we want to have fun in those aspects. We educate a lot of those folks as we do our various interviews across the country during our campaigns, being able to support some of these business owners. As you can imagine, these folks are a part of small business America. That's the backbone of America, being able to say, hey, look, we want to support you. We want to support what you have going on. We love your food. We love your business. We love the energy. And being able to continue to do that throughout the year. And that's what we've been doing with Black Restaurant Week, and being able to just provide some of these restaurants that are on a local space, a national platform. We've been so thankful that over the years, we've done some amazing partnerships with some great corporations such as Disney, Uber, NASCAR, some movie studios over the years, being able to highlight these amazing restaurants. And it's always good to hear them on the phone because we have a project and we say, hey, we want to use your business because we got this amazing call from the movie studio. They're like, excuse me, what's happening? What's going on? And it's, yes, you've been identified for that, but also getting them prepared for those opportunities as well. We're trying to disrupt that narrative that Black is great, Black is wealthy, especially in the culinary space. And so let's make sure that your business is functioning efficiently so that you can get these moments to say anybody can walk in and have a great experience and utilize your business for whatever it may be. Even outside of this Black Restaurant Week, we've been grateful to host various campaigns and competitions over the years. A lot of these restaurants have gotten contracts with State Farm Arena, the George R. Brown Convention Center. Another restaurant got an amazing contract in the city of Los Angeles. There's been some great things that we're doing, but you have to be prepared and ready. And that's what we're hoping to do with all that we do from the foundation and even with Black Restaurant Week.
That's fantastic. I love everything that you're doing. I'm excited to be there as a speaker in January. So just a reminder, everybody go get your tickets. We do have a code FRIEND for 10% off. We will put the links into the transcript and description. Thank you, Derek. I loved talking with you. I could talk all day, but we'll end this one for now.
Thank you, Brent. I appreciate you having me on this platform today.